Okay. So let's see. No, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, yeah.
And you've been a friend for a long time with many of the Samsung people as well as startups here. But tell me, what do you see today? Because you are the first generation of internet wave, and you're the really first platform in many ways.
Right.
So can you tell us about how did you start and how did you get your brand like Yahoo?
Yeah.
I'm sure people are very fascinated. What was important back then?
Well, I feel like my story has been very well told by this point, so I apologize if this has been said before. But this is now coming up on almost 25 years of being in the startup and building a company like Yahoo. And in 25 years, I've seen a lot, Young, and I've been using the phrase that I'm one of the luckiest people you'll ever meet. Because I think in my life, in my business career, I've had the opportunity of having three really great things happen to me. First of all, I was in the right place at the right time, right in the beginning of this web. And you
were at Stanford dormitory, I guess.
Yeah, I was in our office in Stanford, where it just so happened it has one of the best network connections in the world at that time. Mm-hmm. So it was a perfect place to incubate Yahoo for over a year with my partner, David Philo. Without having to worry about what kind of business model or even thinking about it as a business, really. And then I think in 1995, 1996, I was lucky enough to meet Masayoshi Son from SoftBank, who was just transitioning from being a distributor and publisher into the internet investment business. And we were one of his first investments in the internet space. Mm-hmm. And when he made the investment in 1995, early 1996, he insisted on Yahoo going to Japan. Mm-hmm. And there I was fortunate enough to build, to help partner with SoftBank and build Yahoo Japan. To this day, still one of the largest internet companies there.
If you go back, change the clock, would you do that again?
Well, it was very difficult because, Yahoo was maybe less than 50 people, certainly less than 100 people. And if it were left to us, we would never go to Japan at that stage. We may go at some later. But Masa is very insistent. He even put his brother Taizo on the Yahoo team, and they said, just come, come to Japan, and we'll do all the work. And when you have a strong partner like Masa for all those years, and he, really he gave us some of his best management team, we were able to be successful. And then the third lucky thing I had was the well-known story of my first trip to China. I was born in Taiwan and had never gone back to China. I'd never gone to China until 1997. And when I went there, the government had assigned me a tour guide or a handler, and that person was Jack Ma. And so you can't be any more lucky. Even a Hollywood movie cannot make something up.
So this is before he had a company.
Correct. So
he was a tour guide.
Well, no, he was a government official at MOFTech, which is
I see.
Because his English was good, he was assigned to take me around. But even then, Jack was extremely curious about the internet, and he had already started a business that didn't work out so well, so he was going to the government for a little bit. And then shortly after we met in 1997, he went on to start Alibaba, which is just celebrated its 20th year anniversary. So he started in 1999. So if you look at this, if you look at my timing, I challenge anybody else who's luckier than me. But and of course we could talk about now where I am lucky enough to be, working with some of the greatest entrepreneurs. I see Eric peeking at us from the computer here, so hopefully we hear from him. But it's been just a wonderful journey for me. And it's wonderful to see the kind of entrepreneur energy here in Korea.
Great. Well, thanks a lot. In fact, Eric is online, so he's the founder of Zoom. So, hey, I like your location there, Eric. But anyhow.
Other side, Samsung campus.
Yes, excellent. And congratulations on your IPO. I mean, very successful IPO. Both Both, I think Jerry and I were shaking hands on
Yes,
this one.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Very happy. Thank you. See, investors are always happy when you're successful. So, but anyhow, when I met you though, Eric, I remember it was like a December 2011. You know, like I got 30 minutes, and you and I were just having a coffee, and I remember like what are you trying to do? There is many companies that are already out there. You know, I mean, obviously, WebEx was there, and then you know, Skype was there. So how can you be in this business? So Eric, what did you believe in this one? Can you tell us?
So Yang and Jerry, first of all, so sorry I cannot be there physically, and I'm with you virtually, as always. I think I remember that coffee. I think Yang, you're right. Jerry told me something similar, right? So many companies, the market was so crowded. But guess what? All those solutions really suck.
True.
Right? So the world is waiting for a new solution. And I think we have a high confidence we can build something better than any other services. Yeah.
You know, I remember, Eric, two things from that discussion. It was not a long discussion, but I got it, you know. One was that you really focus on user experience, consumer experience. And I think it's a really important message because category exists, but making it easier is what you're really passionate about. But remember the second part? Back then, most people were doing it through notebooks or desktop. And then smartphone was coming. And he said, you know what, I want to get everybody to do video conferencing through smartphone. Now it doesn't sound like much, but back then, I mean, there's a new concept, right?
Yes, that's right. That's why I learned from you and Jerry, right? Both of you told me that you got to simplify the product, make sure everything's very easy to use.
And thank you for doing it. I think, I don't know, how many of you use Zoom in this room? Raise hand, please. I do.
Yeah.
You know what, Eric, you better come to Korea, man, because I noticed only about 1/3 of people in this room raise a hand, which means that 2/3 of Korean market is an opportunity for you.
But don't worry, after today's call, all those 2/3 will start using Zoom.
Very good, excellent. Any, Jerry, you have any questions for Eric?
Yeah. So Eric, I think one of the things that was very compelling when you talked to me was I was a board member at Cisco for 10 years, and we were there for the acquisition of WebEx, and you had come from WebEx as a first engineer, and you had a very simple plan. You want to build, you know, everything everything sucked at that point, like you say, but you also said, Jerry, I just want to take every WebEx customer and turn it into a Zoom customer. So there was something very simple about your mission. Can you talk about that and is simplifying everything the way that you continue to scale?
Yeah, so yeah, Jerry, you're right on. So a little bit of history about myself. I moved to Silicon Valley in 1997 from China, and I joined WebEx as one of the first several founding engineers. Ultimately, I became a vice president of engineering. So essentially, you know, WebEx is sort of like my baby. I worked so hard on that. But guess what? 13 years of hard work, finally, you know, in 2010 or 2011 timeframe, I did not see a single WebEx happy customer. I felt very, very embarrassed. I felt like I have an obligation to fix that problem. However, at Cisco is a great company, but they were unwilling to change. So finally, I decided to leave. The goal is to bring happiness back to every WebEx customers. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, actually, when I moved to Silicon Valley, I just wanted to stay there for a shorter period of time, and then, you know, we'll go back to China. Because of Jerry's story, and I was so inspired, and decided to stay, you know, live in Silicon Valley. So I forgot to mention that.
Yep, it's good to aspire, right? And having a someone that can aspire helps.
Yeah.
You know, it's a motivator.
Yeah.
Yep, it's very
That
good.
just means that you think I'm old. That's okay.
It's a great story. And Eric, so tell us about what do you want to do next? I mean, Zoom now, you know, we've got IPO'd. So what would be like? What's your next dream?
I think in the next 10 to 15 years, I'm very, very excited. I think I truly believe video is a new voice. Video is the future of communications. Like today's call, right? No matter how good a Zoom experience is, I cannot shake hands with you, right? I cannot give you Jerry a hug. All those features will be added in the future. And plus, and we're also going to support real-time language translation. Imagine a world in the future, no matter where you are, any device, just one click, you talk with anyone without any language barrier. And plus, you give anyone a shake hands, other side can feel like that. That's the future of Zoom.
All right, so you really want to close the geographic gap to real time by being connected. All of us.
Absolutely, no distance in the future. You feel like in the same in the physical room. I even think that the video experience like Zoom can deliver a much better experience than face-to-face meeting in the future.
So tell me, Eric, there's a lot of folks in this room want to be like you, right? Building a company only, 7 years ago, and then went public. So what was the most difficult time that you have to overcome?
I think every day is a difficult time. So startup is a long journey, right? You got to enjoy that. So in our case, I would say just the time before we have the first paid customer, that's a very difficult time because we believe we can deliver something, but we do not know the feedback reaction from customer until we got the first paid customer. I think we felt very excited. I think the time before when we started the company until we got the first paid customer, I think almost 2 years is very difficult.
Very good. You're patient about building your products so that eventually customer will come. And actually your products, many of them give a free, right? So you create a really viral effect first before you penetrate ongoing recurring revenue stream out of a business, which is also a very interesting approach because most people want to get paid right away, but you're patient about investing and then getting paid later.
So you're right, one-to-one is always free, even today. But for the group video conferencing, we give you 40 minutes free. Because I built WebEx before, we know the most effective meeting is 45 minutes. So that model works so well.
I see. Smart.
I noticed your background is changing. What other backgrounds do you have back there?
Jerry, it really depends where you want to go, right? If you want to go to the beach, or maybe Fiji Island. So
yeah. I knew you were in Hawaii. I knew it. United States.
You don't know where I am. Actually, I'm at home. So.
Well, that's an entrepreneur for you. Let's give him a big hand.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Eric. Really appreciate joining us.
Go get some
I love you. I love Samsung. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. I didn't pay him for this. So I'm going to shut this one down. I'll let someone else take care of it.
Okay.
But so Jerry, that's kind of finishing our conversation. So internet has evolved quite a bit. You are one of the pioneers and create one of the biggest companies. And you've seen the now dominant platforms that are out here now with the Googles and Amazons and others. Where are we going to, and how do you think that platform will play going forward in this world?
Well, I think, and we talked about it a little bit this morning, but in this group, I think we could talk a little bit more about platform companies and how they evolve, because even if you look at the history of technology companies, other than Apple, which obviously existed, but really in its current incarnation, you think about it from the iPhone generation, none of these companies have been around for more than 25 years, and Facebook was founded in 2005. So these companies can be formed very, very quickly given the infrastructure and the ability for platforms to really be viral. And in many ways, if you look at Chinese consumer internet companies, like ByteDance or e-commerce companies, the second and third generation is growing much faster than the first generation. So the curves really are accelerating. And so I think while the big companies continue to hold a very strong grip on some of the startup scenes, one of the reasons I'm so involved and want to continue to invest in the early stage companies is I think the disruption that startups can have on even big platform companies is very real. We really saw in the U.S. around enterprise, around B2B companies, SaaS companies, where there was just a very open opportunity to disrupt incumbents like Oracle, SAP, et cetera. So you see now Salesforce.com and Workday and ServiceNow, even Adobe, when people can migrate and change their business to SaaS model and cloud model, they can severely disrupt. So I do believe that the culture of disruption and innovation is something that even the big platform company has to watch for. And obviously, as you said, these big platform companies now have very intense regulatory scrutiny in Europe, in the United States, and in other parts of the world. So they now have to act more like the incumbent. They have to act more like the person or the companies that have entered the mainstream. And they're still trying to innovate, but I think their energy is more spent dealing with, sort of political and regulatory pressure.
Navigating.
Yeah.
So one last question.
Yeah.
Given there are a lot of entrepreneurs and startup CEOs and venture capitalists in the room, what are some of the lessons you learned what advice you could give to them about going
Well,
forward?
like I said, I'd rather be lucky than good any day. And that is true being an entrepreneur, but it's even more true being a venture capitalist. As an investor,
True.
Young and I both met Eric at a very early stage, and never in our wildest dreams did we think Zoom can be as successful as it is today. So being in the right place and right time and finding the large trends, I think are a key part of it. And you said it so well, Young. I think the ability to learn from failures, the ability to really be persistent but be malleable and facing challenges. Those are key traits that we see. But I would say every good entrepreneur has those traits, right? They're all tough. So the question really is, can you catch the right trend? Can you catch the right opportunity and really double down on it? And some of that requires timing and luck. But I feel like nowadays, it's so much easier to start a business than when I did 25 years ago.
So maybe one last question, because in a way we're going to talk about Korea, Silicon Valley perspective, and European perspective. How difficult is it for entrepreneurs to go into Chinese market? Do you have a perspective on that? Because you do serve both in Alibaba, so you get to see China in a real time. So there may be an interesting perspective that I don't have actually.
Well, I don't. I think it really depends on what business you're in. But I think the businesses that are largely consumer driven around commerce, for example, is still fairly open. But if you're in the content business or media business, then you have to deal with the government there. And my sense is that the Chinese consumers are they have seemingly endless amount of desire to consume stuff, whether it's buying things online or using the Korea soap operas and the Korea culture is so hot right now that I think there's a tremendous opportunity to be part of that market. Now, I think you have to work with the government no matter where you go, and I think in China the government is a large factor when it comes to building your business. But I think it can be done for sure.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a big hand.
Thank you.
Very
Awesome. Thank you.